feel like I really understand that we have a responsibility to change the narrative around what we are delivering to young people in the classroom.
You know their names: Diana, Kate, Meghan. These women married into the British royal family and became instant global icons, their every move dissected by millions around the world. But what if I told you there's a royal marriage that's been hiding in plain sight? A union so intriguing, so unexpected, that it might just be the most fascinating royal love story of our generation. I'm talking about Princess Beatrice and the man she married in 2020. His name? Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi. And trust me, what you're about to discover will change everything you thought you knew about modern royal marriages. So, here's my question for you. Why hasn't anyone been talking about this? What makes Edoardo's story so different from every other royal spouse? And more importantly, what secrets has the palace been keeping from us? Stay with me, because the truth is absolutely shocking. The invisible royal spouse. Let's start with something that should bother you. When was the last time you saw a headline about Princess Beatrice's husband? Can you even picture his face right now? Exactly. While Diana, Kate, and Meghan dominated headlines from the moment their relationships became public, Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi, or Edo as he's known, has remained mysteriously under the radar. But why? Is it intentional? Is someone trying to keep him out of the spotlight? Here's what makes this even more intriguing. Unlike other royal spouses who became full-time working royals, Beatrice and Edoardo have continued their careers outside the firm. That's right, they're not bound by the same rules. They're operating in a completely different world. But who is Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi? The answer might surprise you. This isn't some commoner who stumbled into royalty. Edo comes from an Italian noble family. His lineage traces back centuries, and his father, an Olympic skier. We're talking about aristocratic bloodlines, meeting athletic excellence, meeting British royalty. It's like something out of a novel. Yet somehow, he's remained virtually invisible to the public eye. Think about that for a moment. How is that even possible in today's age of social media and 24/7 news cycles? What don't they want us to know? The property mogul. Now, here's where things get really interesting. While you might assume Edoardo is living off royal connections, the truth is far more impressive and perhaps a bit unsettling. Edo is the founder and managing director of Banda Property, a high-end property development and interior design company. But this isn't your average real estate business. We're talking about transforming established infrastructures into luxury homes, exclusive galleries, and elite event spaces. The kind of properties that only the ultra-wealthy can afford. Want to know something shocking? Edoardo entered the business straight out of school. No royal connections needed. At town, just 22 years old. Let that sink in, 22. He turned over his first major real estate project. How many 22-year-olds do you know closing property deals? How many have that kind of business acumen, those connections, that confidence? In an interview, Edo revealed something that tells you everything about his mindset. I like the challenge of finding a solution to what seems near impossible. Often, it's the challenges that produce the most spectacular and unique projects. Near impossible challenges, that's what drives him. Does that sound like someone who married into royalty for an easy life? But wait, it gets better, or more suspicious, depending on how you look at it. By the time Edoardo was just 30 years old, he had become the mastermind behind more than 400,000 square feet of developed property across London. The value? a staggering $875 million. That's not a typo. Nearly $1 billion in property value before he even hit his 4th decade of life. So, here's what I want you to ask yourself. Was Princess Beatrice attracted to his royal connections, or was he already operating in circles so elite that marrying into the British royal family was just another Tuesday for him? The scandal they tried to bury. Now, we need to talk about something the palace definitely didn't want making headlines, something that reveals a much more complicated picture of the man who married Princess Beatrice. Edoardo was previously engaged, not just dating, engaged to be married. Her name is Dara Huang, and before you think this is just another ex-girlfriend story, you need to understand who she is. Dara is a Harvard graduate, a highly sought-after architect. She founded her own architecture firm and works with some of the most prestigious clients in the world. She's not some footnote in Edo's history. She's accomplished in her own right. They were together for years. They lived together for 3 years. They were planning a wedding. And then suddenly, it all fell apart. But here's where the story takes a dark turn that nobody wants to talk about. According to reports, Edoardo started dating Princess Beatrice while he and Dara were still living together under the same roof. Think about that. The woman he was engaged to, the woman he'd built a life with, was still sleeping down the hall when his relationship with Beatrice began. And it gets worse. Within just weeks of ending his relationship with Dara, Edo was already publicly dating the princess. Weeks, not months, not years, weeks. Now, Dara has never publicly commented on the timeline. She's never confirmed or denied the overlap. She's remained dignified and silent while rumors swirled around her. But doesn't that silence feel deafening? Doesn't it make you wonder what really happened behind closed doors? The palace must have been panicking. A scandal like this, infidelity, allegations, messy relationship timelines, it's exactly the kind of thing that could derail a royal romance before it even began. So, what did they do? They buried it. They kept Edoardo out of the spotlight. They made sure the story never got the attention it deserved. But we're paying attention now, aren't we? The royal stepchild. If you thought that scandal was the end of the complications, think again. Because Edoardo and Dara share something that makes this situation even more complex. A son. His name is Christopher, though everyone calls him Wolfie. He was born in 2016, which means he's now a young boy being raised between two worlds, his mother's architectural empire and his father's royal marriage. Can you imagine what that must be like for this child? One day, you're living a relatively private life with your mother and father, and the next, your dad is married to a British princess, and you're thrust into a world of palace protocols and public scrutiny. Both Edoardo and Dara have shared candid photos of Wolfie on social media over the years, which raises another question. How does the palace feel about a royal spouse posting pictures of his child from a previous relationship? Is this part of their attempt to normalize the situation? Or is it something they've struggled to control? And then there's Princess Beatrice herself. How does she navigate being a stepmother, or as she calls it, a bonus mom, to her husband's child with another woman? In 2021, Beatrice opened up about this in a surprisingly honest interview. She talked about homeschooling Wolfie during the COVID-19 pandemic, admitting with refreshing candor, "Homeschooling, that was definitely not my forte. Not going to lie. Sadly, I can't blame that on dyslexia." She continued, But I've felt very lucky to have had the chance to work with my bonus son over the course of the school closures. It was a huge learning curve for all of us. A huge learning curve. That's putting it mildly, isn't it? Imagine being a princess, navigating your own challenges with dyslexia, trying to help educate a child who isn't biologically yours, all while his mother, your husband's ex-fiancée, is still very much in the picture. This isn't a fairy tale. This is real life, messy and complicated, playing out behind palace walls. The connection no one saw coming. So how did Princess Beatrice and Edoardo even meet? The palace would love for you to believe it was some chance encounter, a romantic twist of fate. But the truth is far more calculated than that. Prince William met Kate Middleton at university, a story we've all heard 1,000 times. Prince Harry met Meghan Markle through a mutual friend, another well-worn tale. But Beatrice and Edoardo? Their connection runs deeper and darker than anyone realized. They've known each other since 2011. Let me repeat that. 2011! Years before they started dating. Years before the public knew either of their names in connection with each other. How is that possible? How did they know each other for nearly a decade before their relationship became romantic? Or was it romantic all along, just hidden from view? The answer lies in Edoardo's stepfather, Christopher Shale. Shale was a prominent businessman, a politician, and most importantly, a close associate of former Prime Minister David Cameron. Cameron, as you might know, moved in the highest circles of British political power, regularly crossing paths with the royal family. But here's the specific connection that should make your skin crawl. David Cameron was a personal friend of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, Beatrice's parents. Do you see it now? This wasn't chance. This wasn't fate. These families were interconnected for years through political and social ties. Beatrice and Edoardo were orbiting each other in elite circles long before anyone knew they'd end up together. And here's the truly haunting part. They officially met at Christopher Shale's funeral in 2011. Shale had passed away unexpectedly, and his funeral was attended by the who's who of British royalty and politics. Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson were there, of course, and Princess Beatrice accompanied her parents to pay respects. That's where she met Edoardo, at his stepfather's funeral, while he was grieving, while their families came together in loss. Think about that. Their love story began at a funeral. If that's not foreshadowing for the complicated, sometimes dark journey their relationship would take, I don't know what is. The public debut. After years of knowing each other, after tragedy brought them together, after secret meetings and hidden connections, Beatrice and Edoardo finally made their relationship public in 2019. But this wasn't some low-key Instagram post or casual outing where paparazzi just happened to catch them. No, they chose one of the most high-profile events imaginable for their debut, the National Portrait Gallery Gala. And who was with them that night? None other than Kate Middleton herself, the future Queen Consort of England. This was a statement. This was the palace saying, "We approve. This relationship has our blessing." Princess Beatrice wore a stunning velvet dress with elaborate layered skirt detailing. Edoardo looked impeccable in a crisp tuxedo. They looked like royalty, because now they were together. The reaction was immediate. Royal watchers went wild with speculation. Who was this man? Where did he come from? Why had we never heard of him before? Sources close to the couple began leaking information to the press. all painting the same picture. These two were madly in love. One insider gushed, "They hit it off instantly and have a real laugh together. They've been on holiday together," and Beatrice introduced him to Fergie and her dad. But here's the part that should raise your eyebrows. Things are moving very quickly, and it wouldn't surprise anyone if they got engaged within a short period of time. Moving very quickly. They'd known each other for 8 years at that point. 8 years. So how was this moving quickly? Unless something else was going on. Unless there was a reason they needed to accelerate their timeline. Unless the palace needed this relationship to become official before more uncomfortable questions could be asked. The rushed engagement. Princess Beatrice had been with her previous boyfriend for a decade, 10 years, without getting engaged. So, what was different about Edoardo? Not long after their public debut, Edo popped the question. And Beatrice? She said yes immediately. The couple announced their engagement on Twitter, saying they were extremely happy to share their news with the world. They emphasized their shared interests and values, claiming these would give them a strong foundation for years ahead, full of love and happiness. But let me ask you something. Do you announce your engagement on Twitter if you want privacy? Do you emphasize shared values if those values aren't being questioned? Every word of that statement feels carefully crafted, doesn't it? Like it was written by a PR team rather than two people genuinely in love. Beatrice's parents, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, released their own statement, calling themselves the lucky parents of a wonderful daughter who has found her love and companion in a completely devoted friend and loyal young man. Completely devoted. Loyal. Why did they feel the need to emphasize these specific qualities? Were they trying to counter narratives about Edo's previous relationship? Were they trying to reassure the public, and perhaps themselves, that this time would be different? The engagement felt rushed. It felt managed. It felt like everyone was trying very hard to convince us that this was a perfect, uncomplicated love story. But you and I both know that nothing about this relationship has been simple. But Princess Beatrice and Edoardo's wedding plans were disrupted for reasons that had nothing to do with a global pandemic. At least, not at first. The couple originally announced their wedding would take place in May 2020, with approximately 150 guests. A respectable royal wedding. Traditional, appropriate, everything the palace wanted. But then, the date was pushed back. Why? Not because of COVID-19, not yet anyway. The official reason? Prince Andrew's ongoing scandals. Think about that. Your wedding gets delayed because your father's reputation is so damaged that the optics of a royal celebration would be catastrophic. Can you imagine how that must have felt for Beatrice? This should have been her moment, her day, her fairy tale. Instead, it became another casualty of her father's mistakes. Then COVID-19 hit, and suddenly their plans were completely upended. The 150-guest celebration became impossible under pandemic protocols, but according to inside sources, this might have actually been a relief. One friend told the press, "I think because of everything going on with her dad, this was actually better in many ways. Beatrice has always been more low-key. She is a little more serious and more traditional, and she would have been very conscious to do the right thing." The right thing. What does that mean? Was a big wedding the wrong thing? Was celebrating while her father faced scandal inappropriate? Or was there something else? Some other reason why a smaller, quieter ceremony was preferable? Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Beatrice made an abrupt decision. She no longer wanted to wear her originally planned wedding gown. Instead, she asked Queen Elizabeth II if she could borrow a dress from her personal collection. Why would you change your wedding dress at the last minute? Had she seen something in the media? Had someone convinced her that her original choice would attract the wrong kind of attention? Or was this gesture toward the Queen a way of solidifying royal approval, of making absolutely certain that this marriage would be accepted? And here's something even more revealing. The entire wedding was planned in just 2 weeks by Beatrice, Sarah Ferguson, and Edo's mother. 3 women scrambling to put together a royal wedding in 14 days. One source close to the couple revealed they just jumped at the chance when the COVID ban was removed. They were both desperate for it to happen. Desperate. That's a strong word. Why were they desperate? What was the rush? Were they afraid something might still go wrong? That another scandal might emerge? That the window of opportunity might close? The wedding ended up being exactly what the source described. Classic and elegant, small but refined, romantic and lovely. But underneath all that romance, there was urgency. There was desperation. There was a sense that this needed to happen now, before anything else could complicate it. The royal baby. In May 2021, less than a year after their hurried wedding, Beatrice and Edoardo made another major announcement. They were expecting their first child together. The palace statement read, "Her Royal Highness, Princess Beatrice and Mr. Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi are very pleased to announce that they are expecting a baby in autumn of this year. The Queen has been informed, and both families are delighted with the news. The Queen has been informed." Why phrase it that way? Is it just royal protocol, or is there something more? Was the Queen's approval especially important for this pregnancy? And why did they announce it so formally, so officially, when other royals have taken more casual approaches? The announcement also noted that the baby would become the Queen's 12th great-grandchild and would be 11th in line to the throne. The line of succession would shift. Royal protocols would change. This wasn't just a baby. This was a future piece of the monarchy's puzzle. On September 19, 2021, they welcomed a daughter, Sienna Elizabeth Mapelli Mozzi. Notice the middle name, Elizabeth, named after the Queen. This was more than a tribute. It was a declaration of loyalty, a way of cementing their place in the royal family, of ensuring that whatever complications existed in their relationship's history, their daughter would be unquestionably royal. The announcement emphasized that Wolfie is the best big brother to Sienna. They made sure to include Edoardo's son from his previous relationship right there in the official statement. Why? Was it genuine family warmth, or was it strategic? A way of normalizing the blended family situation, of preventing any uncomfortable questions about Edo's past. Baby Sienna weighed 6 pounds, 2 ounces, and the palace made sure to note that all the staff at the hospital received thanks for their wonderful care. Every detail carefully managed, every statement precisely crafted, nothing left to chance. The truth behind the Instagram posts. Here's something that makes Edoardo different from almost every other royal spouse. He's extremely active on social media. While most people married into the royal family maintain carefully controlled, minimal online presences, Edo posts regularly on Instagram. And what does he post about? The Queen. Constantly. In April 2022, he wished Queen Elizabeth a happy birthday, noting they'd be celebrating her incredible service later in the year. In June, 2022, during the Platinum Jubilee. He congratulated her on 70 years on the throne, writing, "Congratulations to Her Majesty the Queen on her remarkable Platinum Jubilee. Thank you for your 70 years of steadfast and dedicated service." Now, on the surface, this seems sweet, respectful, exactly what a royal spouse should do. But let me ask you something. Why does he post about the Queen so much? Is it genuine admiration, or is it performance? Is he trying to prove something? To show his loyalty? To demonstrate that despite all the complications, all the scandals, all the questions about his past, he's a devoted member of the family? Think about it from his perspective. He's the royal spouse nobody talks about. His engagement to another woman ended suspiciously close to when he started dating Beatrice. He has a child from a previous relationship. His wedding was delayed due to his father-in-law's scandals. Every step of his journey into royalty has been marked by controversy. So, what better way to combat that narrative than by publicly, repeatedly, demonstratively showing devotion to the monarchy's ultimate symbol? Queen Elizabeth II herself? Those Instagram posts aren't just about admiration. They're strategic. They're calculated. They're a man who understands that in the court of public opinion, loyalty to the crown is everything. The uncomfortable questions. So now, we need to talk about what nobody wants to address. The questions that hang in the air whenever Princess Beatrice and Edoardo's story comes up. Question 1. What really happened between Edo and Dara Huang? Why has she never spoken publicly about the timeline of their breakup? What does her silence protect or reveal? Question 2. Why has Edoardo remained so invisible compared to other royal spouses? Is it his choice? Or is the palace actively keeping him out of the spotlight to avoid uncomfortable scrutiny? Question 3. Why did they rush to get married during a pandemic? What was the desperation about? What were they afraid might happen if they waited? Question 4. How does Wolfie really feel about his father's new royal life? How does he navigate between his mother's world and his father's palace existence? And what will happen as he gets older and starts asking his own questions? Question 5. Why does Edoardo post so much about the Queen? Is it genuine reverence, or is it compensation? Is he trying to prove something to the public, to the family, or to himself? These questions don't have easy answers. In fact, they might not have answers at all. But the fact that we're asking them reveals something important. This is not the simple, uncomplicated love story the palace wants us to believe in. This is a story about power, privilege, complicated pasts, and the desperate desire to appear perfect when nothing about the situation is perfect at all. What happens next? As you're watching this, Princess Beatrice and Edoardo are raising their daughter Sienna while co-parenting Wolfie with Dara Huang. They're maintaining their careers outside the royal family. They're posting on social media, attending events, living what appears to be a happy, normal life. But we know better now, don't we? We know about the complicated history. We know about the rushed timeline. We know about the scandals that were buried, the questions that were never answered, the uncomfortable truths that everyone agreed to ignore. So, what happens next? Does Edoardo eventually become a more public figure? Or does he continue to operate in the shadows? Does Dara Huang ever break her silence about what really happened? Do Wolfie and Sienna grow up understanding the complex circumstances that brought their family together? The truth is, we're watching this story unfold in real time. Unlike Diana, Kate, and Meghan, whose stories have been told and retold until we know every detail, Beatrice and Edoardo's story is still being written. And that might be exactly why it's so shocking, so compelling, so utterly fascinating. Outro. So, there you have it. The shocking truth about Princess Beatrice's husband that no one knew, or that everyone knew but chose to ignore. Edoardo Mapelli Mozzi is not just some property developer who happened to marry a princess. He's a man with Italian noble lineage, with Olympic heritage, with a nearly billion-dollar property empire he built before age 30. He's a father navigating a blended family in the most public way possible. He's someone whose previous engagement ended under suspicious circumstances just before he began dating royalty. He's a royal spouse who posts devotedly about the Queen while maintaining a mysteriously low profile compared to his peers. He's complicated. He's controversial. He's everything the palace doesn't want you to look at too closely. Because I promise you, this story isn't over. Not by a long shot. But before you click away, there's one more thing we need to address. Something that might be the most unsettling truth of all. Why are we only learning about this now? Why hasn't this story been front-page news like every other royal romance? The answer is actually quite simple, and it reveals everything about how the modern monarchy operates. They've learned from their mistakes. They watched Diana's story spiral out of control. They saw how the media frenzy around Kate created impossible expectations. They witnessed Meghan and Harry's relationship implode under the weight of constant scrutiny. So, with Beatrice and Edoardo, they tried something different: strategic invisibility. Think about it. By keeping Edo out of the spotlight, they avoided the background investigations that would have exposed his complicated past too early. By downplaying their relationship, they prevented the kind of intense media pressure that might have broken them apart before the wedding. By allowing them to maintain careers outside the palace, they created plausible deniability. These aren't real working royals, so why should we care? It's brilliant, in a sinister way. The best secrets aren't the ones you hide. They're the ones you make people not care enough to discover. But here's what the palace didn't count on. People like you, people who ask questions, people who dig deeper, people who refuse to accept the sanitized version of events that were spoon-fed by carefully managed press releases. And now that you know the truth, you can't unknow it. Every time you see a photo of Beatrice and Edoardo looking perfect together, you'll remember the complicated history behind those smiles. Every time you read about their fairy tale romance, you'll hear the word desperate echoing in your mind. Every time you see Edo post about the Queen, you'll wonder what he's really trying to prove. This isn't just about one royal couple. This is about understanding how power, privilege, and public relations work together to control narratives and manufacture reality. This is about recognizing that even in 2025, even with all our access to information, there are still stories being hidden in plain sight. The palace wants you to believe in fairy tales. They want you to see tiaras and think magic, not strategy. They want you to watch royal weddings and feel joy, not ask questions. But you're smarter than that. You've seen behind the curtain now. You understand that every royal story has chapters that never make it to the official biography. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this be where your investigation ends. Look into the connections I've mentioned. Research the timelines. Ask yourself what other royal stories might be hiding uncomfortable truths. And most importantly, share what you've learned. Because the only way these secrets lose their power is when enough people know about them. The shocking truth about Princess Beatrice's husband isn't just what we've uncovered today. It's that there's probably so much more we still don't know, and that should both terrify and intrigue you. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and never ever assume that what you're being told is the whole story. Because in the world of royalty, it never is. Thanks for watching. If you found this as shocking as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more royal secrets the palace doesn't want you to know. Drop a comment below telling me what surprised you most about Edoardo's story. And share this with anyone who thinks they know everything about the British royal family. Because trust me, they don't know this. Until next time, keep questioning, keep investigating, keep demanding the truth.